I was born in Dallas, went to private school, moved down to Austin, joined a band, started breaking all the rules, ended up on Wall Street.
Welcome to the Social Musings by Austin podcast. I'm your host, Austin from Austin, and I am so excited about this month's episode. It's October, my birth month, and I've always been partial to this month because I love Halloween. And just like last year when I dropped 2 original horror stories, I'm dropping another one right now, brand new. It's called Murder in Castell, Texas, the case of the crypto criminal. You can find the text version of this brand new original thriller on my website at www.socialmusingsbyaustin.com. So here goes. Now y'all gather around the campfire and listen to this here gruesome tale of murder in the Texas Hill Country. See, the story begins with a man named Jock Messerschmidt. Now, Jock wasn't always a bad man. When he was growing up, Jock was a star on the Westlake Chaparrals football and basketball teams. You should have seen him play. And that is how John Messerschmidt got his nickname, Jock, which stuck with him forever since his freshman year of high school. Well, Jock was supposed to go play ball at the University of Texas at Austin on a scholarship. But he blew out his knee senior year in the big game versus Lake Travis, and the doctor said he couldn't play no more ball. A year of deep depression followed that incident. When Jock finally got himself right again, he decided to study finance, and following his daddy's footsteps at the family wealth management business, Messerschmidt Capital, based in Austin, Texas. Except Jock, well, he never really got over that abrupt end to his illustrious football career. He never told anyone about his periodic depression and his self-medication. You see, poor old Jock was only one big old slug of bad news away from falling right back into his addiction. And when Daddy kicked the bucket, when Jock was in his mid-30s, well, wheels came off of that bus. Jock went into the pills pretty deep. He ended up heavily in debt. And one day, Jock decided that he was going to steal some of his clients' money to pay his threatening creditors. With a sense of impending doom, Jock knew that Messerschmidt Capital's auditors would eventually figure out about the missing funds. So Jock made the decision to invest the firm's remaining funds into Bitcoin in a huge gamble to try and make up his losses. Well, unfortunately, the cryptocurrency market melted down that summer, and, well, Jock knew the game was up and that he had to get out of town with whatever money he had left. When the feds raided Messerschmidt Capital, Jock was nowhere to be found. His cell phone sat on his desk at the wealth management firm, and none of his important belongings were missing from the home. I mean, shoot, his car was even sitting in the driveway. It was like Jock had disappeared into thin air. Well, you know the media. The papers began calling Jock the crypto criminal. And the media was having a field day because the police had not found Jock for over a week. Little did they know that Jock, well, he had already sprung into action. October 30th, 12:34 p.m., Federal Bureau of Investigation, Austin Field Office, Austin, Texas. Special Agent Sandra Sandy Martinez of the Federal Bureau of Investigation was coordinating, as best as she could, with the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Department of Justice on building the federal government's case against the suspect, a Jock Messerschmidt. However, the FBI and Agent Martinez, they were now taking the lead in the execution of the federal government's search and seizure warrant. So far, Messerschmidt had eluded the authorities and fled with over 1 million US dollars in Bitcoin that he had allegedly stole from his clients' investment accounts. Bitcoin, the black market source currency, was likely the reason that Jock had not yet been apprehended. It was strange. No traceable ATM or credit card uses in the past week. But this was exactly how cyber criminals were beginning to operate. And honestly, the FBI was struggling to keep up with these emerging threats. The more Special Agent Martinez thought about it, Messerschmidt was already a financial ghost, probably only using cash or crypto to make his way across the Mexican border and then further into Central or South America. His final destination was undoubtedly El Salvador, a country which had made Bitcoin one of its national currencies last year, and one which also made extradition of criminals back to the U.S. extremely difficult. Martinez's only hope was that Messerschmidt somehow had decided not to leave the country. Sighing deeply, she called out to her administrative assistant. "This memo's ready for release. Let's get it out pronto." For immediate release. White Collar Crime Unit. Seeking John Jock Messerschmidt. Unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Fraud and related activity in connection with computers. Date of birth used October 31st, 1984. Hair brown. Eyes blue. Height 5'11". Weight 205 pounds. Sex male. Race white. Remarks. Messerschmidt has ties to Llano, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, and New York, New York. Could be in one of any of those locations. His last known address was in Austin, Texas. Caution! The FBI's Austin field office is assisting the Travis County Sheriff's Office with the search for John Jock Messerschmidt. Messerschmidt is wanted for alleged criminal fraud in Travis County, Texas, on October 23, 2022. On October 23, 2022, Messerschmidt was charged with 4 counts of criminal fraud in Travis County, Texas, and a state warrant was issued for his arrest. On October 24, 2022, a federal arrest warrant was issued for Messerschmidt by the U.S. District Court for the Texas Western District Court, Austin, Texas, after he was charged with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Mr. Messerschmidt is wanted for his alleged involvement in a securities fraud scheme that cost his investors millions of dollars. Should be considered armed and dangerous. Repeat, should be considered armed and dangerous. To submit a tip, if you have any information concerning this case, please contact the FBI's toll-free tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI. That's 1-800-225-5324. You may also contact your local FBI office, the nearest American embassy or consulate, or you can submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. Field Office, Austin. October 30th, 2:13 p.m., Llano County Courthouse and Jail in Llano, Texas. The FBI memo had just come across Sergeant James Snell of the Llano County Sheriff's Office desk, and he was furious. Why the hell is the FBI now getting themselves involved? Do they not think I'm working my ass off here? Fumed Snell. For the last week, all of the counties in and around Austin, Texas, had been on high alert looking for the crypto criminal. And Sergeant Snell's office had been highly involved, given Messerschmidt's local ties to the Texas Hill Country. In fact, Snell, he knew Jock personally, or he did 30 years ago, when the two of them were bunkmates at Camp La Junta out in Hunt, Texas. Well, both were good athletes back in camp and had won the prestigious Rough Rider Prize as being the best 8 horseback riders in camp. Now, there was a natural rivalry between them, but, when camp ended after the age of 14, neither Snell nor Messerschmidt thought too much about each other. However, since the disappearance and Jock being in the news, well, Sergeant Snell had done a lot of digging on Jock. And he knew that all of Jock's relatives in the area were dead now, except for his grandma, Edith Messerschmidt, who was now in a care home not too far down the road in Marble Falls, Texas. And while visiting Grandma Edith, Snell did unearth a new, potentially valuable piece of information. Apparently, Grandma Edith had been loaning Jock money for years. And when she believed he wasn't going to pay her back, well, she had decided to sell her property in nearby Castell, Texas. The real estate sale had just closed a month ago, and Edith was certain that Jock was unaware of the deal. She loved her grandson, but she had cut off relations with him because of the financial issues about 6 months ago. Somehow Snell had a sense that Jock might just try and make contact with his grandma. And when he did, that's when the sergeant would get him. October 30th, 6:17 p.m., El Castell on the Llano River in Castell, Texas. Castell is a small town in the Texas Hill Country with a population of 72 people as of the last census, and it was first settled by German immigrants. Standing 18 miles west from Llano, the county seat, for most of its history, Castell's claim to fame involved a German immigrant boy named Adolf Korn, who was abducted in 1870 and subsequently raised by the Comanche tribe, on whose land Castell now sits. For more information on this fascinating true story, check out the book The Captured, which you can find on the Social Musings by Austin website. There's a link. About an hour-and-a-half drive from Austin, Texas, Castell has become an up-and-coming destination for city dwellers looking for a Texas Hill Country getaway. And it was for this reason that longtime bow hunting buddies Don Jabor and Son Jones had booked Cabin C at the El Castell on the Llano River Resort on the Airbnb website. Well, Don and Sean knew each other from St. Mark's School of Texas in Dallas, where they had each starred on the lacrosse team. Well, and since grade school, they had both went to college, and they had ended up in Austin, Texas, working in big-time high-tech jobs. As Don and Sean pulled into the driveway of El Castell, they parked their yellow two-door Ford Bronco in front of the cabin and dragged their luggage inside. "Hey, Don, should we unlock the trunk and put the crossbows inside?" asked Sean. "Nah, let's leave them in there till the morning when we head out," replied Don. "Man, this place is great. They got a TV, internet, grill, a fire pit, acre on the river. Man, this is awesome. We are going to have a blast," Sean exclaimed. Don looked around the living room, saw the guest book, the welcome home booklet, which arrived the various tourist spots and local activities in Castell. "Hey, look, Sean, it looks like there's a big Halloween party across the street at the Castell General Store tomorrow night on Halloween. It started at 8 p.m. I mean, I know we didn't bring costumes, but guess we can go in our hunting gear," said Don. Sean grunted in agreement, and after they unpacked, well, Don and Sean each cracked open a cold beer and sat along the banks of the Llano River to watch the hill country sunset. October 30th, 11:41 p.m., State Road 152, somewhere between Llano, Texas, and Castell, Texas. So this is what it feels like to be on the run from the law. "Man, I really fucked up," thought Jock, as he made slow progress toward his ultimate objective, Castell, Texas. Jock was exhausted, but he knew he had to make progress under the cover of darkness. "It's darker than a witch's titty out here," he thought. The only light came from the brilliant stars above. Every now and then, a shooting star dashed across the sky. Jock kept on reliving the moments of the last week, as if on a mental repeat, but wishing that he could alter the narrative that ran through his mind. Yeah, he'd admit the first mistake was the pills. and his second was stealing the client's money to pay some gambling debts. Yeah, and then the big one was the third, making a big gamble on crypto options to try and make the stolen funds back. And when that crypto crash came, along with the margin call on his account, well, Jock knew he was in trouble. He packed a bag, transferred whatever was left in his crypto account into a secret app on his phone. He left his house on foot and just started walking west, taking little trafficked roads out of town. Whenever he saw the lights of an oncoming vehicle, he would hide in the brush alongside the tarmac. First night, he made it to Bee Cave, where he stole a bike at the Hill Country Galleria. At major highway intersections, underneath major overpasses, and at riverbanks, Jock noticed that there were always a handful of homeless people who were camped out. And that gave him an original idea. I'm going to blend in with the homeless population. Jock swapped some clothes and a hat for one of the homeless guys camped out near the city of Bee Cave Central Park. And after that, getting out of the populated areas around Austin went a heck of a lot easier. The next night, he made it all the way to Marble Falls, using the bike and then hanging around the Baylor, Scott & White emergency room off I-71. Over the next few days, Jock gradually made his way, creeping towards Llano, through the brushy and rocky Texas hill country terrain. He kind of enjoyed sleeping outside even and just being out in nature. His plan was to visit his grandma at her place out in Castell, and hopefully she would help out her grandson, Jock, as she had done in the past. With any luck, Jock would be there in just a few hours, just in time for his birthday on Halloween. October 31st, 3:13 a.m., El Castell on the Llano River in Castell, Texas. Don was asleep in the guest bedroom when he woke up, hearing a noise outside the window. It was pitch black, and he crept out of bed and looked outside. At that same moment, crouching underneath the window, Jock wondered what the hell was going on. There was a strange car parked nearby the house, and there was a stirring inside the guest bedroom. At first, Jock's plan was going to be to wake up his grandma even at the late hour, but now he wasn't so sure what to do. I'm going to wait it out in the bushes near the river, and I'm going to watch who comes out of that house tomorrow morning, Jock thought as he climbed into the brush. A few hours later, at the crack of dawn, he saw two men leave the property, driving a yellow Ford Bronco. They were dressed in camo hunting gear. Well, Jock's mind started racing, thinking about what to do next, and there was still no sign of his grandma. October 31st, Halloween, 6:59 a.m., Llano County Courthouse and Jail in Llano, Texas. Sergeant Snell was drinking the pitiful black stuff they called coffee at the sheriff's office. He had spent all night going through the property transaction records for Llano County and had identified the new owner of Grandma Edith's place in Castell as a shell company named the Castell Investment Group, LLC. Now, Snell's descendants had arrived in Llano County over 100 years ago, and he was proud of his Texas hill country heritage. Nowadays, rich people from all over Texas were flooding into the area with investment. Tech yuppies from Austin with way too much money, bidding up the property values to then turn around and rent them out on Airbnb to other tech yuppies from Austin and make even more money. Some of them were even moving out there permanently, given their ability to work remotely. The other day, Sergeant Snell responded to a traffic incident involving a couple who had just moved from L.A. to Mason, Texas, to host a new podcast about living in the Texas wilderness or something like that. How do these people even know this part of the country existed? Why would they want to live here? Snell pondered. I guess people from all over have finally started to realize how good we have it here. Returning to his work from his thoughts, he deduced that when it was finally a decent hour of the morning to call the new owner, probably in an hour at 8 a.m., He was going to see if he could get permission to search the premises. October 31st, Halloween, 7:13 a.m., El Castell on the Llano River, Castell, Texas. Jock had tried all of the doors and windows, which were all locked. However, he was able to break the lock on the storage shed to the east of the cabins. And he was looking through the old boxes of stuff, some of which he didn't recognize, but some of which looked to be some childhood stuff of his that he had left in his grandmother's a long time ago. As he was digging through one of these boxes, he found one of his prized childhood possessions. A Halloween mask from the Tim Burton Halloween movie classic, Beetlejuice. You know the one, "Daylight come and me one go home." Released in 1988, Beetlejuice was Jock's favorite movie during his adolescence, although his parents didn't allow him to watch it until he turned 13 years old. Once he did see the movie, though, he was hooked, watching it every October afternoon when he came home from school as a run-up to Halloween. Well, in addition to his huge crush on an adolescent Winona Ryder, every night he would say, "Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice," before he went to sleep, hoping that the character played by Michael Keaton would show up in his bedroom and whisk him away to another world. Jock remembered going to the Halloween store when he was a teenager and finding this haunting mask, which he always found terrifying, from the movie. The mask was from the part in the movie when Adam, one of the two deceased former homeowners, tries to scare the new homeowners away. The Adam Halloween mask was made of plastic that looked like wrinkly flesh, had two large black holes where the eyes should be, a highly elongated snout, and a toothy evil grin. Furthermore, you could put the eyeballs on the fingers. Cradling the mask like a prized possession, Jock started to think of a plan. I'm going to wait until the big Halloween party tonight. I'm going to blend in with the crowd in plain sight with my mask, and I'm going to take my revenge on whoever those bastards are in my grandma's house. October 31st, Halloween, 2:52 p.m., Llano County Courthouse and Jail, Llano, Texas. Sergeant Snell had tried repeatedly to reach the new owner of Grandma Edith's property in Castell, but all he had been able to do was leave multiple voicemails at the property owner's head office, this Castell Investment Group, LLC. Apparently, this investment group was buying up properties all over the town of Castell and turning them into fancy Airbnbs for wealthy out-of-towners. It was getting towards the end of the day, and many of the deputies had already left to go trick-or-treating with their families. Sergeant Snell wasn't a big fan of Halloween, and he had never been married or had kids, so he always volunteered to be on duty on the night of Halloween on October 31st. And usually, October 31st was a relatively quiet night for the Llano County Sheriff's Office, although every now and then he would respond to a disturbance call at Babyhead Mountain near Castell. Now, every kid growing up in Llano County was familiar with the legend of Babyhead Mountain. As the story went, in the 1850s, there were many alleged cases of tribes capturing local children and using them as bargaining chips in land negotiations. One night, a group of Native Americans supposedly stole a 4-year-old girl and murdered her up on an elevated slope near the town. When the local ranchers finally found the little girl's remains, they only found her head. And even then, it was only sticking up with the empty eye sockets staring out of the rocky terrain. There was an alternative version of the story, too, that many locals bought into. According to this version, it was actually the local ranchers who had decided to make a martyr out of one of the unfortunate town children and concoct a fallacious story about the murder in order to get the government's assistance in exterminating the tribe. Whatever the truth was, sometimes kids from the local high school would go up to an old deserted home atop Baby Ted Mountain on Halloween night, drink beer, howl at the moon, and wait for the ghosts to appear. Perhaps Snell would preemptively go over to Babyhead Mountain tonight and then stop by the big Halloween night party at the Castell General Store and ask people if they had seen anyone matching Jock Messerschmidt's description. October 31st, Halloween, 6:59 p.m., Castell General Store, Castell, Texas. Don and Sean had just crossed the street from El Castell to the Castell General Store, which was packed for its annual Halloween bash. Halloween tunes such as Monster Mash, Thriller, and a new song by Austin from Austin called The Halloween Song were blaring over the loudspeakers, and everyone was in costume. "Look at all these crazy costumes," exclaimed Sean. "Makes me wish we had something better than our hunting outfits." Don agreed and looked around at all the various Halloween costumes and decorations. Of course, there were the naughty nurses and superheroes. One group was dressed up as all the characters from the HBO show Euphoria. One guy was dressed as a Llano County Sheriff's Office sergeant, or maybe he actually was one. There was even some dude in like a strange Beetlejuice mask who kind of seemed to be following him and Sean around the party, but whatever. "Hey, Sean, let's grab a beer and one of those famous Castell General Store burgers I've heard all about on Google Maps. I'm definitely getting the extra jalapenos on mine," said Don excitedly. At the same time, Sergeant Snell was surveying the crowd. After ensuring there were no shenanigans going on at Babyhead Mountain, he had driven into Castell to see if he could have a look around Grandma Edith's old property, which had apparently been turned into a boutique Airbnb hotel called El Castell on the Llano River. But first he would check out the party and make sure there was nothing amiss. "How in the hell am I supposed to identify any suspects on Halloween?" he thought. "Everyone is a darn costume with a mask covering their faces." An hour later, the party was in full swing. Sergeant Snell had finished his search of the outdoors around the El Castell premises, finding nothing amiss, and headed back to respond to a call back in Llano. Don was feeling the effects of the extra jalapenos and the Budweisers sloshing around in his stomach. "Hey, Sean, I'm going to head back real quick to the cabin and, do my business. I'll be back," stated Don as he raced back across the street towards the bathrooms at El Castell. Given the hundreds of people at the party, no one noticed Don being followed across the street. October 31st, Halloween night, 8:13 p.m., across the street at El Castell on the Llano River in Castell, Texas. Don was stuck on the toilet, regretting the decision about the jalapenos. Don heard the front door to the cabin open and swing shut. There was some rustling around the kitchen. Sounded like doors were being opened and noises of silverware being shuffled about. "Hey, Sean, is that you? Hey, sorry, man. I'll be back at the party soon, I promise." There was no reply. "Sean?" asked Don again in vain. Suddenly, a knife blade stuck through the bathroom door. "What the?" screamed Don, who leapt off the commode, pants still around his ankles. The door was kicked open, and the man in the Beetlejuice mask barged in, wielding a large butcher knife. With the noise of the Halloween party, no one heard the screams coming from the cabin. Across the street at the Castell General Store, Sean was wondering what was keeping Don so long. It was a killer party, and he didn't want to leave, but he was also worried about his childhood best friend. So as Sean approached the cabin, he noticed the lights were on in the cabin, and strangely, the front door was wide open. He walked inside to see that the TV in the living room was on, and the movie Halloween was playing. Like Michael Myers was stalking someone, and the spooky theme music was deafening. Disturbed, he walked down the hall, turned around the corner, and saw his best friend Don's lifeless legs sticking out of the bathroom door. Sean turned around to race to the car to get his crossbow. As he turned the corner, Sean saw a sight that made his blood curl and chills rush up his spine. In the living room, with blood dripping off a large butcher knife, stood a large man in a mask from the movie Beetlejuice. It was the most terrifying and last thing he ever saw. November 1st, 1:14 p.m., Llano County Courthouse and Jail, Llano, Texas. Snell was flabbergasted. He had just returned from the double homicide crime scene at the El Castell cabins. I was right there last night, he thought, and I missed him. The maids had arrived at checkout time at 11 a.m., found the carnage, and called 911 immediately. The deceased were Don Jabor and Sean Jones from Austin, Texas, who were in town for bow hunting season. They'd still been in their hunting gear, which was drenched in their own blood. The most haunting part of the whole scene was a bloody Beetlejuice mask and large butcher knife found in the brush and cacti on the perimeter of the premises. Yeah, Sergeant Snell would check those for DNA and from inside the mask, but he knew it would match back to Jock. Press is going to have a field day on this one, lamented Snell in his head. In the weeks ahead, there were rumors that Jock was hiding in Austin, posing as a homeless person in a tent city. As of yet, he has not been found, and the legend of the crypto criminal continues to grow. So this Halloween, be wary of that man behind the mask, and as always, be careful with whom you trust your money. You definitely do not want to cross the paths of good old Jock Messerschmidt, the crypto criminal. And now, campers, it's time for bed. Try not to have any nightmares. Got my lantern jack, got my Twix and my Kit Kat, MJ Thriller on video. It's All Hallows Eve, let's go. Get ready for the moans, creaks, groans, and screams. Horror movies and trick or treat. Drop that TikTok, rock that crop top, party on 6th string, never know just who you meet. Could be ghosts, ghouls, gremlins, or goons. Drinking witch's brew under the harvest moon. Now you're on the ground, sending shit to the fan, wearing that skeleton mask, looking something like a monster mash. It's 10:31, let's have some fun. 2021, yes.